If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here, writing this, I would have laughed in their face. I was the guy who had it all figured out, or at least, I thought I did. My name's Daniel, I'm 34, and I work as a project manager for a tech company in Boston. Stable job, stable life, stable marriage. Or at least, that's what I believed. I met my wife, Olivia, 8 years ago at a friend's wedding. She was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, loud, full of energy. I was the quiet, laid-back type, always thinking before I acted. But somehow, we clicked. She brought the excitement, I brought the balance. For a long time, we were happy. We traveled, we built a home together, we even talked about kids, though she always brushed it off, saying we had plenty of time. I believed her. I believed everything she said, and maybe that was my first mistake, because looking back, there were signs. Over the past year, something changed. She started staying later at work, always complaining about deadlines and extra meetings. At first, I didn't question it. She was ambitious, career-driven. That was one of the things I loved about her. But then came the little things: the way she suddenly guarded her phone, the way she seemed distracted even when she was home. It was like she was there, but not really there, and I should have seen it for what it was. But love makes you blind, and I was about to find out just how blind I really was. The night everything changed started like any other. Olivia had been working late a lot lately, and tonight was no different. She sent me a quick text around 7:30. Big project. Don't wait up. I stared at the screen for a moment, that familiar sense of unease settling in my gut. Something wasn't right. It wasn't just the late nights anymore. It was the way she acted when she was home, the way she pulled away when I kissed her, the way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, that I had ignored the signs for too long. Not tonight. Instead of staying home like I usually did, I grabbed my keys and drove to her office. I wasn't planning on catching her in anything, I just wanted to see. To know if I was crazy for feeling this way. When I got there, I parked across the street and waited. Half an hour passed. Then an hour. People started leaving the building, one by one, until only a handful of cars remained in the parking lot, and then I saw her. Olivia walked out around 9:15, but she wasn't alone. Her boss, Andrew, was right beside her. Laughing. At first, I told myself it was nothing. It's just work. Maybe they were heading to grab a late dinner, talk business, and then I saw the way she touched his arm, the way he leaned in, too close, whispering something in her ear that made her smile. Not the kind of smile she gave me anymore. And then they kissed, right there in the parking lot, under the streetlights, without a care in the world. It wasn't a quick, awkward thing. It was deep, familiar. Like this wasn't the first time. Like they had done this 100 times before. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My hands clenched around the steering wheel. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to get out of the car. I wanted to scream, to confront them right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a picture. I needed proof. I needed to know I wasn't imagining this. I sat there, frozen, watching as they got into his car and drove away, and just like that, everything I thought I knew about my marriage was gone. I don't remember the drive home. One moment, I was sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The next, I was back in our apartment, staring at the walls, at the pictures of us, pictures of a life that no longer existed. My mind kept replaying the scene over and over. Olivia kissing him. Laughing. Acting like she didn't have a husband at home who would have done anything for her. I tried to tell myself there was some kind of explanation. That maybe I was wrong, that there was some logical reason she was acting like this, but deep down, I knew the truth. There was no misunderstanding. I saw what I saw, and now, I had a choice. I stayed up all night, waiting. I didn't text her. Didn't call. Just sat in the darkness, the only sound in the apartment the ticking of the clock on the wall. At 1:34 a.m., the door unlocked. I didn't move. I just watched as Olivia stepped inside, her hair slightly disheveled, her makeup faded from the night. She froze when she saw me sitting there. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You're still up?" I kept my voice calm. Too calm. Like I was talking to a stranger. "Yeah. Long night?" She hesitated. For just a second. But that second told me everything. "Yeah," she finally said. "I told you, big project. We had to run through a bunch of last-minute details." I nodded slowly, my stomach twisting. She was lying that I could feel it, but instead of throwing the proof in her face, I let her talk. Let her keep digging her own grave. She dropped her bag, walked over, and kissed me on the forehead like she always did. Like nothing was wrong, and for the first time, it disgusted me that I let her go to bed. I let her sleep peacefully, wrapped in the lies she told herself, because tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, I woke up with a plan that I wasn't going to let her gaslight me, twist the truth, make me feel like I was crazy. I needed undeniable proof. So while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone that I knew her passcode. She had never changed it. Maybe she thought I'd never have a reason to check. Maybe she was just that arrogant. Either way, I was in, and what I found shattered whatever small hope I had left. Texts. Hundreds of them, messages from Andrew that stretched back months. "Last night was incredible. I can't wait to see you again. You have no idea how hard it is to keep my hands off you at work. You looked so good today. I could barely focus in meetings." There were photos, too. Some taken at work, some taken in what looked like a hotel room. Her smile in those pictures was different from the one she gave me. I scrolled, my hands shaking. They had been meeting up for months, sneaking around, lying to me every single day, and the worst part, she had used me as an excuse. Ugh, Daniel is being so needy lately. I need a break from playing perfect wife. Can't wait to see you. I told him I'm staying late at the office again. He's so clueless. I almost feel bad. Almost, that word did something to me. I wasn't even a person to her anymore. Just an obstacle in the way of whatever twisted little fantasy she was living. I put the phone down, my hands clenched into fists. I had my proof. Now, it was time for her to face it. I waited until she got out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself like she wasn't the worst person I had ever met. When she saw me holding her phone, her expression flickered just for a second. Then, just as quickly, she smoothed it over. "Hey," she said, like nothing was wrong. "What's up?" I turned the screen toward her. The messages. The proof. Her entire body went still. Then, slowly, she forced a laugh. "Daniel, are you seriously going through my phone?" I didn't blink. "Yeah. And guess what? I found everything." She hesitated, her mind clearly racing, trying to figure out how to spin it. "How to make this my fault." "Okay," she said carefully. "I don't know what you think you saw, but," I laughed. Actually laughed. "Are you really gonna lie to my face right now?" "I read everything, Olivia. I saw the pictures. The texts. I know." Her jaw clenched. The fake innocence was gone now. "Okay, fine." She crossed her arms. "Yeah, I've been seeing Andrew. But before you go making this into some huge betrayal, maybe take a second to think about why." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" She scoffed. "Daniel, let's be honest. This marriage has been dead for a while. You're boring. You don't put in any effort. You just exist. Andrew makes me feel something." My fingers curled into fists. She was really standing there, blaming me for her affair. "So instead of talking to me like a decent human being, you decided to cheat?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, grow up, Daniel. People have affairs all the time. It's not the end of the world." I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. Because she wasn't worth my anger, she wasn't worth anything. "You know what?" I said, stepping back. "You're right. It's not the end of the world. Not for me, at least. Because I'm done. She blinked, caught off guard. Wait. What? I grabbed my jacket, my keys, my wallet. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't going to waste another second of my life arguing with a woman who had already decided I didn't matter. Daniel, don't be dramatic, she scoffed. You're really leaving over this? I paused at the door. Looked at her one last time. The woman I thought I knew, and then I smiled. No, I said simply. I'm leaving because I finally see you for who you really are. And with that, I walked out. For the first time in years, I walked away from the woman who had been lying to me, using me, disrespecting me, and I didn't look back. That I didn't know where I was going at first. I just drove. The streets were quiet, the glow of streetlights blurring as I gripped the wheel, my mind running in circles. I had just walked away from my marriage, from the life I had built with Olivia, and the strangest part was, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief. Maybe that was the real proof of how dead this marriage had been long before I caught her with Andrew. That I ended up at a late-night diner, the kind of place where nobody asks questions. I ordered coffee. I barely drank and just sat there, staring at my hands, the weight of everything pressing down on me. The texts. The pictures. The way she tried to twist it all around, like I was the problem, like I had somehow pushed her into another man's arms. I thought about all the nights I had believed her lies, the times she came home late smelling like unfamiliar cologne, the fake sighs about long meetings and difficult projects. It was like my entire marriage had been rewritten in an instant, every memory tainted by the truth I hadn't wanted to see. My phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. Olivia. I let it ring. She called again. And again. The text started coming in right after. Daniel, can we talk? I didn't mean for you to find out like that. Don't do anything stupid. That one made me laugh. Stupid? Like what? Expose her to her coworkers? Tell her family what kind of person she really was? Let her boss's wife know? Because yeah, I found out Andrew was married too. And honestly, I was considering it. That I sat there, the coffee growing cold in front of me, and tried to figure out my next move. Divorce was the obvious answer. There was no coming back from this. But I wanted more than just to be done with her. I wanted her to feel the consequences. I wanted her to know that she hadn't just made a mistake, she had ruined something real. I didn't care if she felt guilty, I wanted her to feel stupid. I wanted her to look back and realize she had thrown away someone who truly loved her for a man who saw her as nothing more than a fling. Because let's be real, Andrew wasn't leaving his wife for her. At some point, exhaustion took over. I left the diner, found a cheap hotel, and checked in for the night. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, it hit me. I wasn't broken. I wasn't sobbing into a pillow, wondering what I had done wrong. I wasn't begging for answers. I was free. And that meant something. It meant that Olivia's betrayal wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. That I woke up in that cheap hotel room to sunlight streaming through the dusty curtains, my body aching like I had been in a fight. And in a way, I had. My mind had fought itself all night, replaying every moment of my marriage, every time Olivia had looked me in the eyes and lied, every time she had smiled at me with the same mouth she used to kiss another man. But when I sat up, rubbing my face, I realized something. I didn't feel broken. I felt done. And maybe that was worse for her. I checked my phone. 12 missed calls. 8 voicemails. A flood of texts. Olivia had officially switched into panic mode. The first few messages were apologetic. Daniel, please just talk to me. I don't want things to end like this. Then came the excuses. You have no idea how hard things have been for me. It's not what you think, I swear. Then, when I didn't respond, she got angry. Are you really acting like a child over this? It's not like I cheated for fun, you know. You've never even asked me why. That last one almost made me laugh. Why? Did I need to hear her say it? Was she going to tell me it was my fault, that I was boring, that Andrew made her feel alive, or whatever nonsense cheaters tell themselves to justify their selfishness? I didn't care about why. I cared about what came next, and I knew exactly what that was. I packed my things and checked out of the hotel, driving straight to our apartment. I didn't text or call to tell her I was coming. She didn't deserve a warning. When I walked in, Olivia was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, her face pale when she saw me. "Oh my God, where have you been?" she demanded, as if she had any right to ask. "I've been calling you all night." I tossed my keys on the counter. "I know." She stood up, brushing her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit. "Daniel, listen. Can we talk about this like adults?" I tilted my head. "You mean like adults who don't cheat on their spouses?" Her jaw clenched. There it was. That flicker of anger she always got when things didn't go her way. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, voice soft, like that changed anything. "It just things got complicated, okay? I never wanted to hurt you." I almost admired how quickly she was slipping into damage control. "Almost. Complicated," I echoed. "That's an interesting word for months of lying and sneaking around behind my back." She sighed dramatically, crossing her arms. "You're acting like I'm some kind of villain, but Daniel, things between us haven't been right for a long time. And you know it." Ah. There it was. The classic "it's your fault I cheated" speech. That I let her talk. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to watch her dig the hole deeper. She went on about how we had become distant, how she felt like she was losing herself, how Andrew had just been there for her, in a way I supposedly wasn't. It was like listening to a bad soap opera, and when she finally stopped talking, I pulled out my phone, opened my gallery, and turned the screen toward her, the pictures. The texts. The proof. Her face drained of color. "Where did you get that?" I smiled. "Because now? Now, I had the power." "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that I have it. And that means you don't get to lie anymore." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she looked nervous. Good. That I pocketed my phone and grabbed my bag. "I'll send you the divorce papers. Have a great life, Olivia." I turned to leave, but she lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. "Wait. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can figure this out. You don't have to throw everything away over one mistake." I pulled my arm free. She still didn't get it. "You threw it away," I said, my voice steady. "I'm just walking away from the wreckage." And then I left. For the first time in years, I was free. And I was never looking back. That I walked out of that apartment and straight into my new life. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But the truth is, starting over isn't instant. You don't wake up the next day feeling like a brand new person. You don't suddenly erase years of love, betrayal, and disappointment in one dramatic exit. It sticks with you. It lingers. I spent the first few days in a daze, bouncing between anger and exhaustion. I stayed at a hotel at first, avoiding calls from Olivia, ignoring texts that went from "please talk to me" to "you're seriously throwing this all away" to "you're being childish." I never answered. What was there to say? She had already said everything when she chose someone else. By the end of the week, I was meeting with a lawyer. The thing about divorcing a cheater is that they never expect you to actually do it. They think they have time. That they can manipulate the situation, wear you down, convince you that staying is easier than leaving. Maybe that works for some people. But not for me. I wasn't going to give Olivia the satisfaction of dragging this out. The lawyer was direct, efficient. He asked the standard questions: assets, shared accounts, property division. It was all pretty straightforward. No kids, no messy financial entanglements, just two people who were done. Well, at least one of us was. The papers were drawn up quickly, and that's when I finally responded to Olivia that I sent her a single text. I've started the divorce process. The papers will be sent over. Don't contact me unless it's necessary. Her response came fast. Are you serious? You won't even talk to me? Then another. This is insane, Daniel. We can fix this. Then, when I didn't reply, fine. If you want to throw everything away, that's on you. I didn't reply. Because there was nothing left to throw away that I had managed to avoid Olivia entirely for a while. But life has a twisted sense of humor. 2 weeks after serving her the papers, I ran into her by accident. I had gone to grab coffee at a place I rarely visited, just trying to clear my head, when I heard my name that I turned and there she was. She looked different. Not in a good way. Tired, stressed. Like she wasn't sleeping well. Good, Daniel, she said, walking up like we were old friends, like she hadn't destroyed everything. Wow. It's been a while. I nodded, keeping my face unreadable. Not long enough. She sighed, shaking her head. Do we really have to be like this? Like what? I asked. Like two people who have nothing to say to each other? She looked away for a second, like she was searching for the right words. Then, in a lower voice, she said, I don't know how we got here. I actually laughed. An actual, honest laugh. Seriously? Olivia, you cheated on me for months. You chose this. Her expression hardened. There it was. That familiar frustration. The look she gave when she wasn't getting her way. I told you before, Daniel, things weren't perfect between us. Maybe if you had actually paid attention. I held up a hand. Nope. We're not doing that. She blinked. Doing what? Rewriting history. Acting like your cheating was some inevitable outcome instead of a choice you made. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. Instead, you lied to my face every single day. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing to say, because deep down, she knew I was right. That I exhaled, glancing down at my watch. Look, I'm not interested in rehashing this. Just sign the papers when you get them. She crossed her arms. And that's it? Just like that? I met her gaze, completely calm. Just like that. And then I walked away. For the second time in 2 weeks, I walked away from Olivia, and this time, it felt even better. Walking away from Olivia that day should have felt like closure. Like the final nail in the coffin of whatever we had once been. But the truth is, healing isn't as simple as signing papers or walking out of a conversation with your head held high. It lingers. It creeps up on you in the quiet moments. When you wake up in an empty bed that used to be shared. When you instinctively go to text someone who isn't yours anymore. When you hear a song you didn't even know was attached to a memory until it's too late. But here's the thing about pain, you don't realize how much of it you've been carrying until you finally set it down. I threw myself into distractions. Work, the gym, old friendships I had neglected while being too wrapped up in a marriage that turned out to be a lie. And slowly, I started to feel like myself again. I got my own place, a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but mine. Every piece of furniture, every choice, every little thing about it was mine. No traces of Olivia, no memories lurking in the corners. Just a fresh start. And yet, life wasn't done testing me. A month had passed since I last saw Olivia, and for the first time, I genuinely wasn't thinking about her. I was out at a bar with some friends when I overheard something that made my stomach turn. I hadn't been listening at first, just idly sipping my drink while my friends debated some football game. But a familiar name cut through the noise, Andrew. I glanced over at the next table where a group of people were talking. It wasn't long before I realized they were discussing him. Olivia's boss, the man she had thrown everything away for. I had no idea who these people were, but the way they were talking, they definitely worked with him. And they were laughing that I leaned in slightly, not meaning to eavesdrop but unable to help myself. I'm telling you, the guy's a legend, one guy said. He's had, what, 3 affairs in the last year alone. The girl next to him rolled her eyes. At least. He goes through women like it's nothing. It's disgusting. A slow, icy realization settled over me. They were talking about Andrew's history. His pattern, and then someone said something that made my blood run cold. Yeah, and that whole thing with Olivia? What a disaster. My grip tightened on my drink. What happened with that? Another voice asked. The guy laughed. She thought she was different. Thought she was gonna be the one who made him change. And then he dropped her the second his wife found out. My stomach twisted. Andrew's wife found out and he dropped Olivia. It took everything in me to keep my expression neutral, to sit there and process what I had just heard. She lost everything, she threw away our marriage, destroyed our home, humiliated me, and for what? For a man who never even saw her as more than a temporary distraction. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I smiled, not out of pettiness. Not out of revenge, but because, for the first time, I felt nothing at all. That I didn't reach out to Olivia. I didn't care enough to. But a week later, she reached out to me. It was a simple message. Can we talk? I stared at my phone for a long time before responding. About what? Her reply came fast. Please. Just meet me for coffee. I almost said no. But a part of me wanted to hear it. Not for closure, I already had that. I just wanted to see how she'd try to spin it. So I agreed. The coffee shop was quiet when I walked in. Olivia was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking different from the last time I saw her. She looked tired. Like the past month had been a wake-up call she hadn't expected. She gave me a small, hesitant smile. Hey. I nodded and sat down. So? She sighed, staring down at her hands before finally looking at me. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow. For what? She swallowed hard. For everything. For what I did. For how I treated you. You didn't deserve any of it. It should have meant something. But it didn't. She wasn't apologizing because she realized she loved me. She wasn't apologizing because she suddenly had morals. She was apologizing because she had lost, she had risked everything, and it backfired spectacularly. And now, she wanted me to do what I had always done, be the safe, forgiving husband who took her back. I sipped my coffee. What happened with Andrew? She flinched. It doesn't matter. I smirked. It does to you. She exhaled sharply, looking away. His wife found out. He cut things off. Moved on like I was nothing. I nodded slowly. And now you're sitting here. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was hoping to find something in my expression. Hope. Regret. A chance, but all she found was a man who had already let her go. You know, I said, setting my cup down. For a long time, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I could have done something different. Been better. But the truth is, Olivia, you didn't cheat because something was missing in our marriage. You cheated because something is missing in you. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to argue, but she didn't, because she knew it was true. She reached for my hand then, a desperate move, but I pulled back. I hope you figure it out, I said simply. But that's not my problem anymore. And then I stood up, walked out, and left her sitting there with nothing but her regrets. And I didn't look back. I walked out of that coffee shop, stepping into the crisp autumn air, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't sadness, or resentment, or even satisfaction at seeing Olivia finally face the consequences of her choices. It was freedom. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt completely weightless. She was no longer my problem. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. A clean break. No drawn-out fights, no desperate last-minute attempts from Olivia to fix what she had broken. She signed the papers quickly. Maybe she thought I would change my mind. Maybe she was still holding on to the hope that I'd realize I missed her, but I didn't, not once that I got my own place, a better one than the apartment I had rushed into after leaving her. I started doing things for me, working out, traveling, living. And the best part, I stopped looking over my shoulder. Stopped expecting the past to tap me on the shoulder and pull me back, that I was free. And then, one day, Olivia was nothing more than a memory. Months passed. Life moved forward. And then, one evening, I was at a restaurant with some friends when I heard a familiar voice that I turned my head and saw her, Olivia, sitting at a table across the room. Alone, she looked different. Not just physically, but in the way she carried herself. Like someone who had learned the hard way that actions have consequences. She saw me. And for the first time, she didn't try to approach me, she just gave me a small, sad nod. A silent acknowledgement that I returned it. Then turned back to my conversation, because she was no longer a chapter in my life. Looking back, Olivia's betrayal wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing. It forced me to wake up. To stop settling for a relationship that had been falling apart long before she cheated. To rebuild myself into someone stronger, wiser. Someone who knew his worth. And as I walked out of that restaurant that night, I realized something: that I didn't hate Olivia, that I didn't wish her happiness, but I didn't wish her misery either. That I just didn't care anymore. And that was real closure. Walking out of that restaurant, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: complete and total indifference, not just toward Olivia, but toward everything that had happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the months of self-doubt, the anger that had once consumed me. For so long, I had thought closure would come from confrontation. From exposing her. From watching her suffer the way I had suffered. But the truth was, closure wasn't about her at all. It was about me, and I had already moved on. The months after the divorce were some of the most eye-opening of my life. It wasn't just about being single again, it was about rediscovering who I was without her. I started focusing on my career, taking on new projects, pushing myself in ways I hadn't before. I realized how much I had held myself back in that marriage. Not because Olivia ever explicitly told me not to chase my ambitions, but because she had a way of making me feel like I was never doing enough. I had spent so much time trying to be the perfect husband that I lost track of what I actually wanted. Not anymore. I reconnected with old friends. Built new relationships. Even started dating again, slowly, on my own terms. And for the first time in years, love wasn't exhausting. It wasn't about chasing someone's approval or constantly proving my worth. It was easy. Natural. Real. And that's when I knew for sure Olivia had done me a favor. 6 months after the divorce, I got an unexpected message: "Hey. Hope you're doing well. Can we meet up?" Olivia. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, "Why?" She responded almost immediately. "I just want to talk. Please." Part of me wanted to ignore it. To leave her on read the same way she had ignored my worth for so long. But another part of me, the part that wanted to put this whole thing to rest, decided it was worth hearing her out, not for her, for me. So I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, the same one where she had once asked me to talk after Andrew dumped her. Except this time, she looked different, not just tired, humbled. I sat across from her, waiting. She took a deep breath, then said, "I just wanted to say that I really am sorry." I nodded, but didn't say anything. She hesitated, then continued. "I know I can't change what happened. And I know I hurt you more than I can ever make up for. But I've done a lot of thinking since then, Anne. I just wanted you to know that I regret everything." I studied her for a moment. She meant it, but it didn't matter because I no longer needed her regret to feel okay. I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. "You know what, Olivia? I believe you." She looked surprised. "You do?" I nodded. "Yeah. But here's the thing, I don't need your apology. I don't need closure from you, because I already found it on my own." Her eyes flickered with something: regret, maybe, or the realization that she had truly lost me. I gave her a small, almost amused smile. I hope you figure yourself out. But that's not my problem anymore. I stood up, tossed a few bills on the table, and walked away, and that was the last time I ever spoke to Olivia, the real final goodbye. People think the hardest part of betrayal is the pain. But that's not true. The hardest part is rebuilding yourself afterward. It's learning how to trust again when everything in you says not to. It's choosing to be vulnerable again, even when the last time almost destroyed you. But you know what? I did it, and I came out better for it, because Olivia's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of something better. Walking away from Olivia that day, I knew this was truly the end. Not just of our marriage, not just of the betrayal, but of her place in my mind, my heart, my life. She was nothing more than a lesson now. For so long, I had thought healing would come from some grand moment, some dramatic confrontation, some perfect closure where she would admit everything, beg for forgiveness, and I would get to walk away victorious. But the truth was, closure wasn't about her at all. It never had been. Closure was the silence that followed. It was the realization that I didn't care anymore. That I didn't feel anger, or bitterness, or even satisfaction. I felt nothing at all, and that was the most freeing thing I had ever felt in my life. I won't lie and say moving on was easy. Because rebuilding yourself after betrayal is like learning to walk again. You don't just go back to who you were before. That person doesn't exist anymore, you become someone new, and that's exactly what I did. At first, I was just surviving. Waking up, going to work, going to the gym, going home. Repeat. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, wondering if I would ever be able to fully shake it off. Wondering if, at some point, Olivia would pop up in my head and I wouldn't feel the weight of everything she had done. But the thing about healing is, you don't notice it happening. You wake up one day and realize you don't check your phone expecting to see her messages. You walk past places that used to remind you of her, and instead of pain, you just feel nothing. You stop wondering if she's thinking about you, if she regrets it, if she's still with Andrew, or if she got played like I knew she would. Because it no longer matters that I threw myself into work not as an escape, but because I actually enjoyed it again. I started taking on projects that excited me. I traveled. I spent time with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I reconnected with family, people who had always been there for me but I had pushed aside in the fog of trying to keep a broken marriage together, and most importantly, I stopped looking for Olivia in the rearview mirror. I stopped wondering if she ever regretted it. I stopped checking if she had moved on. I stopped needing her regret to feel okay, because I was already okay. They say love finds you when you least expect it. I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better after a breakup. But then, one evening, I met Hannah. It wasn't anything dramatic. No grand love story. Just two people meeting at the right time. She was kind, but not in a performative way. She didn't play games. She didn't make me feel like I had to earn her attention or prove my worth. She saw me, exactly as I was, and that was enough. For the first time in years, love wasn't exhausting. It was easy. It was effortless. It was real, and that's when I knew Olivia had done me a favor. If she had never betrayed me, I would have never left. I would have stayed in a marriage where I was constantly undervalued, constantly trying to be enough for someone who would never appreciate it. But now, I was in something real. Something I didn't have to fight for, because it was freely given. It was a complete accident that I hadn't seen or thought about Olivia in over a year. And then, one evening, I was out at a dinner with Hannah when I heard someone say my name. I turned and there she was. She looked different. Not just physically, but in the way she carried herself. Like someone who had been through something and come out the other side, but not unscathed. She hesitated for a moment, then gave me a small nod. No attempt to come over. No desperate need to talk. Just an acknowledgement. I nodded back, and that was it. For the first time since everything happened, I truly understood what moving on meant. It didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean never thinking about the past. It meant looking at it without feeling anything, that I didn't hate Olivia, that I didn't love her, that I didn't care. She was just another person in a crowded restaurant. And as I turned back to Hannah, smiling as she told me some story, I realized something. This was always how my story was meant to end, not with heartbreak, not with anger, not even with regret, but with peace. Because Olivia's betrayal wasn't the ending, that it was just the beginning of something better. For a long time, I thought the best revenge was moving on. Living well. Thriving. But some people? They don't deserve to just be forgotten. Olivia had shattered our marriage, humiliated me, and acted like I was nothing more than an inconvenience in her way. And she never truly faced the consequences. That was about to change. It started with something simple, gathering everything I had. The texts, the photos, the proof of her affair with Andrew. But I didn't stop there. Because Andrew wasn't just some guy. He was her boss, and I had receipts, emails between them sent from her work account. Messages sent during office hours. Pictures of them together in company-paid hotel stays. Enough to make sure that their little affair wasn't just a personal mistake, it was a professional catastrophe. I sat on the evidence for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. And then, one day, the opportunity presented itself on a silver platter. Andrew's company was hosting a big networking event. An event where his wife would be present. Where his colleagues, his superiors, would be gathered. So I sent an anonymous email, with everything, every single thing. It was like watching a train crash in slow motion. Within hours, everything blew up. Andrew was confronted by his wife in front of his coworkers. He tried to deny it until she pulled up the emails, the texts, the photos I had sent her. People whispered. Employees stared. And just like that, his career was over. But Olivia got it worse. She wasn't just a random woman he had an affair with, she was his employee. And when the company reviewed everything, she was fired on the spot. By the end of the night, she was unemployed, single, and completely exposed. And I was miles away, sitting in a bar, smiling into my drink. She called me over and over. I ignored the first few. Then, finally, I answered. She was sobbing. Daniel, you did this? I took a sip of my drink, savoring the silence before I said, no, Olivia. You did this. She choked on her breath. My career is over. My life is ruined. I lost everything. I smiled. Yeah. Sucks when someone takes away your choices, doesn't it? She stammered, trying to say something, trying to find some way to turn this on me, to play the victim. But she had nothing left. So I ended the call with 5 final words: enjoy the consequences. You earned them. And then I blocked her number, for good. I never heard from Olivia again after that. The last I knew, she had to move out of our city. Couldn't find another job in her field because her reputation was wrecked. Andrew's wife divorced him, took everything in the settlement, and left him with nothing but a destroyed career. And me, I moved on. Really moved on. I traveled. I met someone new, someone who actually valued me. I built a better life, free of lies, free of betrayal, and the best part, I never once looked back. Because some people don't deserve forgiveness, some people deserve to burn in the mess they created. And Olivia, she finally got exactly what she deserved.